Today's video all about surface imperfections. Firstly, we're going to go over how to control the power and intensity of them and how to fine tune that control. Then next we'll look at how to blend multiple imperfection maps together so that you have like a more varied result. Thirdly, we'll look at how to apply a roughness or imperfection map to an existing material that you already have. We'll also look at how to apply your imperfection map using Vertex painting. And then lastly, which is a banger, is we'll be blending between two different materials so that we can have these little gold chips and flecks across our object. This will be a fun one, super useful, and let's get started. Okay, so I'm in Unreal Engine 5.4.2, and the first thing we need to do is get an object to test our material on. So I'm going to use the modeling mode for that, and if you don't have that, go into your plugins, type modeling, and just make sure you have modeling tools editor mode enabled, and then restart your engine. Once we have that done, let's go to our modeling mode, and I'm just going to use a sphere for this example, and I'm going to make sure it's quite a high poly sphere. So you can see I've made this before, but by default this is what the settings will be. So I'm just going to reduce this down to 20 and then up my subdivisions to 128, and we will need it to be high poly for one of the examples later on, but you can use whatever object you want. So once I have these done, and again, if I press Alt 2, I can see it's super high poly. I'm going to press Alt 4 to go back and then hit accept. So now that's done, we can now go back to our selection mode. And if I just go to my camera view, I have a camera set up right here. I'm just going to move this up a bit, use my grid, and then maybe move this a little more central, something like that. And if you want to know how to get this two pane view set up, just go up to this little icon up here, layouts, and then go to two panes. And then I'm just in my camera on the left viewport. Cool. So first thing we'll do is make our first material. So go to any folder you have, right click material. I'm going to call this M for material _ surface imperfections tutorial. And then right click and create a material instance and hit save on those guys. And then I'm just going to drag my material instance onto my sphere. So if I go to my sphere, you should see that instance applied. So the first thing we'll do is let's just set up some basic nodes in our material that I just opened up, that we just made. So I'm just going to add a basic color node, and I'm going to hold V and click, so that'll make a 4 vector parameter. Again, that's the exact same thing as typing constant 4 vector, right click, convert to parameter. Also, it's the same thing as if I right click base color, promote to parameter, the same thing. So you can just use whatever method you like. I'm going to make this like a deep blue. Just rotate around, maybe something like that should work. Hit save. Yeah, that works well. And then we'll just play with this roughness input here. So I'll have a bunch of links in the description below of the imperfection maps that I've used. I got a bunch from Ambient CG and a few from DeviantArt, like a free imperfection map pack, and also some from the Quixel Bridge. So you can use whatever one you like. I'm going to use this one from, there's a material called Plastic 17 on Ambient CG. So I'm just going to maybe drag my material out or undock it, and then just drag my roughness map into here, and then let me full screen my material. Cool. So first, let's just start off with dragging our roughness input into here, or our output of the map into the roughness, and hit apply. And you can see here, it will be very subtle. If you look around this white box, the specular highlight, you might notice a little imperfections happening around the edges, which is from our map. If I move around, you can kind of see it. And we might need to increase the tiling. So to do that, let's quickly make a texture coordinate node. By the way, if you do want this project file for free, I'm starting this sort of newsletter weekly tip thing where I kind of just want to get better at writing, first of all, and also sort of conjure a community where we're sending out tips and tricks and shortcuts and cool references and things like that. So the idea is to send out download links or tips or something like that once a week, no spam. You can unsubscribe. I'm not trying to sell you Patreon stuff and all that. Haven't made any paid content yet. I do want to eventually, but I just want to make sure it's really good and useful. So when I'm ready, I will. But for now, just sending out free content, free tips, sign up if you're interested. And yeah, link below. This project file I'll be sending out as well. And hopefully this video isn't too boring and I don't talk too much. See you soon. So you can type texture coordinate, or you can also just hold U and click, and that'll make a texture coordinate node. And then let's make a scalar parameter, which is a constant. And then you right click, promote, nope, not preview. Right click, promote or convert to parameter. You can also hold S and click, and that'll make a scalar parameter. So I'm just gonna rename this, press F2 to rename, call it tiling. And then make the default 1, hold M and click for a multiply node, drag these into those, that into the UVs, hit apply. And if we just go back to our, let me drag it over, material instance that I've opened up, we can change the tiling from 1 to 2 maybe, it might be enough. Yeah, 2 seems to be good. And now you can really see the imperfection maps around the different highlights of the sphere. But again, super subtle. So what if we want to have some control over that? Let's go back to our main material, our parent material. And essentially what we want to do is, if I just drag our roughness into base color, as you can see here, and then let me just go to unlit. The darker the value is, the more or the less rough it'll be, so the more reflective. And then the lighter the value is, the more matte it will be. So that's why the scratches and stuff are a lighter value, because they will be less glossy than the non-scratched areas. So first we want some control over that. One method we can use is called a cheap contrast node. So if you just right click and type cheap contrast, let's actually first change the input to this. So if you want to move an output of one node to another node, you can hold Control and just drag it into the other one. And now we just put our roughness texture into there, and we can right click contrast, promote to parameter, and now we have a contrast slider. And then we hit apply and save. And if we just now play with this contrast slider, 0.1, you can see we don't have much fine-tuned control over it. I can even go into the negative, like negative 0.1, that makes it a bit brighter. It's almost bringing the entire level of the texture up and down, rather than crunching the whites and the blacks. So I'm not sure why it works like that, or why, maybe because it is a cheap contrast, so it's not doing too much fine-tuning. But if I change it, again, this is default, back to 0. And then if I go to negative 0.1, you can see the roughness texture looks a lot better, like a lot more even and less contrasty, because I've gone negative. So I've lifted up the dark areas, but it's also lifted up the lighter areas. And then again, if I just plug my blue back into base color, hit apply, you can see it's a lot more, it's still quite subtle, but it's less glossy. So that's one way of doing it. I think this would work a lot better if my roughness texture was a lot more contrasty, but it's already quite balanced and quite subtle. And you can check that out by just double clicking your texture here, and it'll open up this guy. So you can see it's not too contrasty at the moment. Now, another way to have, I think, a bit more control over it is if I just delete these guys, drag out, and then let's type in smooth curve. And then drag that into roughness, and then hit apply. And then I'm just going to change this back to lit mode. Actually, I'll leave it unlit for now, and I'll show you what this does. So if you've ever adjusted a texture in Photoshop and done the levels adjustment, you can see like the range of bright and dark values of that texture. I know a bunch of technical artists will get mad at how I explain that, but you know what I mean. So this kind of gives you more control over that levels curve. You know, if you're adding a bit more contrast, you might make a slight or more stronger S curve, things like that. This gives you control over that. So let's first add some parameters, and I'll show you what this is doing. So I'll plug this into base just to give you an idea of what's happening. And let me promote tangent 0 to a parameter. And I'll set the default as 1. And then let me promote tangent 1 to a parameter, and that default will stay 0, not 1. Oh, actually 1 works as well. Why did I not think it would? Anyway, so this output is the same as this. So right now we're outputting the same thing. Now if I bring this value higher, you can see it starts lifting the whites or the lighter values, 2, 3, while still keeping a bunch of contrast in the image. And then maybe I can reduce the tangent 1, minus 0.5, minus 2, minus 10. Okay, so yeah, I'll keep going into the negative, and that brings down or adds more contrast in the curve. So let me just leave this again at 1 and 0, and I'll show you how you can have a bit more fine-tuned control over it. So we've applied that. Let me put our blue color back in, apply, save. And if we go back to our material instance, I'll just make this window smaller, and let me just play with this tangent 0 value. If I drag it up slightly, you'll now notice the scratches are a lot smoother in appearing. So the contrast that it's applying, or how it brings up the lighter values, just works a lot better than the cheap contrast node. So this is another way of adjusting your imperfection maps, and you might just be happy with this. This might be all you need. Thanks for watching, but I will show you even more fine-tuned control that you can have over this texture. So back in the parent material, I'm just gonna delete these guys now, and there's another output that we can get, which really does mimic the control you have in Photoshop, but it's just a bit more annoying, is called 3-point levels. So this gives you, you can see it has the black, middle, and white value. And if you remember the sliders in Photoshop, there's those 3 little arrows that you can crunch and adjust. So we have those values, and then you can pick where the middle point is, or you can use it with this as well, and you can hover over it. So you pick a value from the input image that will get replaced with the value from the middle value. A bit confusing, but you're just adjusting where the texture is being biased. And then this interpolation power pretty much gives you control of the contrast. So there's a bunch of different ways in this node how you can adjust or affect the texture that's plugged into it. And if you want to learn more about it, just double click it. It'll bring up this guy and you can look at what it's doing. I'm not super sure what it's doing, so I'm gonna stick with the material function that they've made. Let me just straighten out these nodes by pressing Q and selecting them. Drag this down. And let me drag this to the side a bit. So you could just make a parameter for all of these and have all the fine tuning that you want, which I've kind of done in the past, but for the sake of this video, I'm just going to show you the most important ones. So the first thing we'll do, I'll do S and click, or I'll hold S and click, and let's make a middle value. So the default is 0.5, which makes sense. So let's drag this into, actually, let's drag that into middle point here, because I'm pretty sure it should work the same. And then we need to define an interpolation curve. So it's looking for a static Boolean. So it's asking, hey, do we want to define it ourselves, or should we just have the default interpolation curve set by the texture or defined by the node? We want to define it ourselves, so we have control over it. So let's get this, promote to parameter, and then let's make it true. So we want to define our own one. And the next thing we want to do is control the interpolation power. So right click, promote to parameter, and then let's make the default 2, because that's what the default of this is. We could also just make it 1. Let's see what it's doing. So you can see it's a lot darker than this. So if I drag this back here, make this 1, that looks pretty similar. Yeah, that looks like to be the same. So it looks like the default is 2, but really if you don't want any adjustments to the texture at a base level, we'll leave it at 1. And let me just drag our blue back in so we can test this guy out, hit apply and save. And let's go back to our material instance. We can now first define the middle value. So 0.5 will be in the middle. If we want to bias it towards the darker values, we should go lower. So 0.1, oh, maybe not. Maybe that biases towards the lighter values. So 0.1, you can see really makes it rougher. 0.2, 0.3, 0.5, 0.1. So if we leave it at 0.5, and let's just play with the interpolation power. So 2, super high contrast, 1, 0.1, 0.5, and back to 1. Maybe if we bias it towards the rougher values, 0.1, and then increase the contrast from there, let's try 1.5, you can now see, get a glossier material and have those scratches still pop out because they're still quite rough, but the base underneath it is staying quite glossy because we've increased the contrast. And then you can change your middle value again, 0.2, 0.15, go up in this, 2, super glossy, subtle scratches, adjust the middle value again, 0.1, 0.12. So again, a lot of really good fine-tuned control with this node, just using these 2 values here. Now, I've played with these black, middle, and white values, and that does also give you a lot of control, but I think you can do a lot of it with just these guys right here. But feel free to play around, promote all of these to parameters, and then slide them around as long as you want. I'm gonna not do that just because I'm already taking way too long in this video. Score 1, and then I'm just going to straighten these out by pressing Q, and then let's select all of this and Control D to duplicate, and I'm just going to rename this to roughness underscore 2, and I'm pressing F2 to rename, by the way. And I'll also call this tiling R1 for roughness 1, F2 underscore roughness 2. Don't know why I'm saying it so weird. And we can delete this texture coordinate and then just drag this guy in because it's the same thing. So now we have our 2 roughness maps. Apply and save. So how I'm thinking of doing it is I want to blend between these 2, but I also want to have control over each one and then control over the final output. So first thing I'll do is actually grab a different texture, because right now this is the same texture. So I've got this other one called Dirt02 from this DeviantArt free pack that I've linked below. So I'm just going to drag that into here. Cool. So now we've got 2 different textures, and you can see this one is a lot more contrasty. So I might want more control over this guy just to make it blend a bit better. So one thing we can actually try is if we just drag out and get our classic cheap contrast node, it might work better in this situation to simplify the whole thing. And if it doesn't, we'll try something else. Drag out of this guy, cheap contrast, and then get our scalar parameter. So I'll call this contrast underscore roughness 1. Leave that on 0, I'm pretty sure. Yep. Control D to duplicate. Contrast roughness 2. Drag that into there. And we also want to blend between these because maybe we want more of roughness 1 than roughness 2. We only want roughness 2 to be more subtle, or vice versa. How do we do that? We can use a linear interpolate node. So that's one of these guys, linear interpolate. Another way to grab this node is if you hold L and click, it'll make a linear interpolate node. So I'll delete that. And we plug roughness 1 into A, roughness 2 into B, and then this will control the blending between the 2. So just a simple like blending slider. And to have control over that, we can just hold S and click, and I'll call this roughness blend, and the default will be 0.5, so it'll have 50% of this and 50% of this blended on top of each other. Drag that into the alpha, and then we can drag the output of this lerp into 3-point levels. So this will be our final fine-tuning, and then this will be like our initial fine-tuning. So once we're happy with this blend, then we can fine-tune it even more with pushing certain levels. And that's about it for the setup. So let's try this out. Hit apply and save. I don't even know what this will look like. So as you can see, this looks pretty crazy right now, and we definitely want to have some control over it. So let me set all of these back to defaults that we had set up. Okay, so this is what the default looks like. Not bad. You can see if I play with that roughness blend node, that if I put it to 1, that'll be all of roughness 2. So when this is set to 1, it'll be all of this guy, or the B input. And then you can see when I put the roughness blend to 0, it'll go back to that original super subtle texture that we had. So let's play with the contrast of each of these. So let me maybe make this a little softer. I think with this texture, I might actually want the smooth curve adjustment because it just provides a way nicer contrast curve. So I'm gonna delete the cheap contrast and then honestly just plug this into X, this into tangent 0, and then this into A. You can totally choose whatever you want. I've got to make sure this is set to 1, by the way, by default. And then now let me bring this up. There we go. So I might set it to something like this, and then now let me change the roughness blend from 0 to 1 so we can look at this guy and tune him up a bit. So you can see if I reduce the contrast a bit more, it sort of lets me get some control, and it's a bit too tiled right now. So I'm going to change the tiling of my second roughness map to like a 0.5 instead of a 1. So yeah, 0.5 probably works a bit better. And then if I change the blend to now 0.5, where it's in between the two, we can adjust the contrast a little more, maybe. -1, 0, maybe -0.1, -0.3 maybe, yeah. And then just play with that guy a bit more. And now once I'm sort of happy with the mix, like I can still see some scratches there. Maybe I can up the tiling to like a 2 for the scratches. Put it back down to 1, 3. Yeah, so the scratches are there. Those fingerprints and dirt marks are there. And now once I'm happy with that blend, let me play with these middle values and the interpolation power, which again, if you remember, is our final fine tuning. This might be a bit overkill, so if you want to set up a simpler material, you can, but I just kind of like doing it this way. So I do want the final output to be a little glossier. So I might bias the middle value up a bit. Yeah, 0.7. Okay, that can be glossier, and then I'll add a little more contrast there. Okay, so now that's looking a lot nicer. This is still a little too strong for me, which is my second roughness map. So -0.5 gets rid of it, -0.4. Yeah, so you can see the difference from 0.3 to -0.4. And then we can up the contrast a little more. Yeah, like a 2.5, 2.8 maybe. And that still stays quite glossy, but you have a nice mix of imperfection maps blended between each other now. So this is kind of how I like to fine tune and blend different imperfection maps together. Let's jump into how to apply this to a existing material that you might already have. Okay, so I've just made a copy of our sphere and now just reset the material. And I've downloaded these tile textures, a PBR texture from Ambient CG. So again, link down below if you want to download it. And let's just first set up the base tile material. So I'm going to right click, material, m_tiles, right click, make an instance, drag the instance onto our sphere, double click the parent material. If it opens, there we go. Let me drag it over. And let's also just drag these textures in like that and just connect these up. And now let's just drag in a grunge map or an imperfection map. I've just downloaded this wipe marks one from Quixel Bridge, and you can see it's got this _MR, which means metallic and roughness. So M is the first one because M is in the red channel of the texture. So that's the metallic map. And then green, the roughness map, is in the green channel. I mean, R for the roughness map is in the green channel. So we'll use the green channel for this guy. So let's drag this in and make it a bit bigger. And the end goal of this is to have control over the imperfections while also retaining info from the roughness map, and also control how intense the grunge map is on top of the base roughness. So to do that, really simple. Again, we drag out of our green channel, that's our roughness. Let's just make a cheap contrast node because I think that will work quite well with this guy. And I say I think, but I've actually tested this before, so I know it will work fine. Hold S and click. Let's make a contrast node for the, I'll just call it imperfections. Leave it on 0. And then now we want to blend between these two guys. So let's use a linear interpolate and control that. So base roughness into A, our imperfections will go into B, and then we'll make a blend of the roughness, default 0.5, drag that into the alpha, drag this into the roughness. So now this should be your setup. I'm just gonna double click the node wire there and just drag it here to clean it up a little more. So if we hit apply and save, yeah, our sphere should now have a little map on it. So if we just browse back to our material instance, let's see which side biases the base roughness. So 0, okay, cool. So 0, this is what the original roughness map looks like, this guy. So if we just leave it again on 0.5, we are now blending between the two. You can even kind of see the white marks appearing a bit. If I play with the roughness map, you can kind of see it happening if I play with the blend roughness. So if I just leave it on 0.5, let's play with our contrast slider. And now you can see we're making our wipes a little more contrasty, which means they appear more on the surface. I still want my tiles to be glossy and have like a hint of the white marks on it. So I'm actually going to change the blend roughness to like a 0.2. Yeah. So it's still glossy. And now if I increase the contrast of my wipes, you can kind of see they start to appear, especially in these nice highlights here as well. So maybe I'll bring up the blend roughness a bit and then change the contrast a bit more. And now you can see we have this nice grunge map on top of our tiles. And the final thing that we need to do is just add some UV tiling to this. So U and click, S and click, call it tiling imperfections, default 1, drag it out to the left a bit, hit M and hold, or hold M and click for multiply, that goes into the UVs. And we could also promote this to a parameter and just call this imperfection roughness or something, and then hit apply. And now you can swap that out for whatever you want with other Quixel bridge or Quixel assets. Now we have some tiling, so let's make this 2. And now you can see we have some thinner or finer white marks. I actually really liked it on 1. So I reckon that works really well. And that's how you add a grunge map or imperfection map to an existing material. Okay, so now let's do some vertex painting. So I'm just gonna grab this guy, hold Alt and drag him to copy him over. And I think a good way to do it, let's just duplicate the first material that we made, because that'll be a bit easier. And then I'll just call it VP for vertex painting and hit enter, right click, create material instance, drag it onto this guy. And we might need to adjust the amounts a little bit. You know, one thing you can do actually, little tip is, sorry, open the wrong one. Let's open up this instance that we made before. If you hold shift and right click the parent, it'll copy all of these settings, and then shift and left click, it'll apply those exact same settings to the same parameter group, as long as your variables and stuff are all the same, like the naming conventions. So now we've got the exact same look on 2 different material instances. So little quick tip. Anyway, let's open up the VP, the vertex painting one. I'll drag it over. And remember how we made our sphere super high poly? The reason for that is for the vertex painting. So one thing we need to do is blend between the surface imperfections and just a regular roughness. So what I mean by that is, if I just hold S and click and call this base roughness, and I'll make the base roughness like a 0.5, and then let's make a lerp, linear interpolate, drag the base roughness into A, drag our previous roughness into B, and then this goes into here, and then hit apply. And you can see it is now blending between a roughness of 0.5 and the original setup that we made. So I'll just call this, press C to comment, imperfection, and then I'm just gonna drag this to the left, drag it out. So what we want is we want the alpha between these two to be the vertex painting thing that we make. So really simple, right click, type vertex color, and we will paint on the red channel by default. Let's just do that anyway. Put that into the alpha, hit apply, save. So we haven't painted anything yet, so we're not seeing any of our base roughness. To do that, just select your mesh in the top left, go from selection mode to mesh paint, and then go to paint. And what you can do is click fill. Okay, wait, first swap it, and then we'll fill it with black. So right now, all we're seeing is the A input. So this is our black, and then the B input will be our white. So we need a blend between those two. And again, remember, we're painting only on the red channel. So let's just uncheck green and blue. And now if I swap these back, so paint color to white, you can now kind of see, let me go in a bit, I'm painting that imperfection map back on. And because I want maybe a little more contrast just to see what I'm doing, I'm gonna open up this material instance that we just did and maybe make it a little on the glossier side. So I'll just up the power to like 4, 5 maybe? Yeah, 5 is good. So now let me just go back to paint. And now you can see I'm painting my imperfection map all over my mesh. And because it's super high poly, I have like all this control over it. So really good for when you're doing fine-tuning stuff on product viz or any arc viz things where you don't really care too much about performance. You can do a bit of this on a few of your objects. And again, you can change the strength and stuff. So if I made this 1, it would be super harsh. You can see like that. And now another thing we can do is if I go back to my selection mode, go back to my material, we now have this mask that is controlled by our vertex map, right? What we can do is blend between 2 different colors now. We don't only have to use this in our roughness, we can use this for color as well. So if I make a new vector parameter, again, hold V and click to make one. I can call this color 2. And let me just make this like a orange. And then hold L and click for a lerp. So our blue will go into A and our B will go into orange. And then our vertex color can be used as the alpha. Drag that in, hit apply. Now all the areas that we paint, if we go back to mesh paint, will appear orange. So that's pretty cool. You can now color in your object as well. You can use this in your metallic or specular or wherever your emissive, if you want to paint some emissive values on, that could be cool. So this is a really cool way to blend and have subtlety in your imperfection map. So you can, again, because I made it a parameter, I can now adjust that in my material instance. So maybe I'll just make it something a little more subtle or a little brighter or, you know, something like that. And it could be more desaturated, almost like a wet map on something, or you could paint like condensation or fog onto a mirror or glass. So that's totally a cool option that you could do. And let's jump into the final one. This should be a fun one. We're going to blend between 2 different materials. All right, so let's get this blend material going. I've just copied the sphere over and cleared the material, and we want a blue plastic base with some gold flecks spread out throughout the material or throughout the object. Now, I've got this, again, blank sphere. What we want to do is right-click, create a new material, call it m_material blend. And then I'm going to right click, create material instance, and then drag that onto the sphere. Now let's just double click to open up our material blend, drag it wide. And now what we want to do first is grab our blue plastic material. So I'm just going to open up our original material that we made, which is this guy. And I'm going to copy it. So Control C, grab all of it, and then Control V. And now before we just drag these into the respective inputs, I'm actually going to, again, make sure nothing is selected and then go to this left details panel and use material attributes. So this is going to allow us to blend between 2 materials, and you'll see why very soon. So first thing I want to do is, let's just select all of this and comment it. So C to comment, and I'll call it blue plastic, show bubble, just so I can see it when I'm zoomed out. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to right click and do set material attributes, or we can also do make material attributes. And I'm going to do make. This one, the set allows you to like add only the inputs you want, but because I might want to add some stuff in later, I'm just going to use make. So again, base color into base color. This result goes into our roughness, and then this output goes into the material attributes. And then you hit apply, save. And now you've got this exact same material. It's just the parameters are a little different. So if I open up the material instance that we put on our object, remember that little trick we did? We can open up this guy's material instance, which is this one I have open, shift right click, shift left click. And now we've got the exact same parameters. Cool, so we have our base material set up. Now let's go back to our parent material, which was this guy. I'm just gonna drag the instance in there, close out that dude. So we've got our blend and our blend instance. What we're gonna do is use a blend node to blend between a gold and the plastic. To do that, just type in matte blend. Nope. Is it material? Matte space blend? Oh, matte layer blend. That's right. Matte layer blend. And I'm gonna look for standard. Some people like to use simple. I found it has some weird blending issues with normal sometimes, so I'm just going to use standard. And now what you can see is we have a base material and a top material and an alpha, and very similar to a lerp, but pretty much we're lerping between materials. So then I'm going to plug my plastic into the base and then the blended into that, and then hit apply, and nothing should change. Cool. Except now we have this input for a top material. To do this, let me drag my comment. Let's just make a simple gold material. So make material attributes. I'm gonna hold V and click base color gold. So just make it like an orangey yellow. Plug that into base color. Metallic, I'm just gonna use a constant. So 1 and click to make a constant. I'll just make it 1. And then I can just right click to preview. And then we just need some roughness in there to make it smoother. So I'll make it like a 0.2 roughness. Should be shiny enough. That should do fine. Maybe 0.15. Yeah, and then I might make this a little more coppery. Cool. So stop previewing. And now if we just drag this into the top material, and then you could even make an alpha and amount. I'm just going to, matte blend. We're not going to do this for the final, but just to show you what's happening, and I make it 0.5 and plug that into the alpha. You can see it's now blending between the gold and the blue at a 50% amount. So if I increase this, it'll bias towards the gold, and if I decrease this, it'll start going towards the blue. So now we just got to put a imperfection map in this alpha to have a nice little gold speckly material. So I'm gonna delete that, hit apply and save. And now let me just go find my imperfection map. So I've downloaded this grain imperfection map from Quixel Bridge, and I'm just gonna drag it into our material now. So this guy, just drag it in, and let me just make some space. So grab this, press C to comment. I'll call it gold, show bubble when zoomed in. Let me just move these guys out the way. And with this, we're just gonna do what we've been doing this whole tutorial. So let's drag out of the green, which is our roughness map, and plug that into 3-point levels, because I just want some more fine-tuned control for sure with this guy. Hold U and click, hold S and click, call this mask tiling. I'll make the default 1. I need to make a multiply first. That goes into B, that goes into A. Again, M and click to multiply. That goes into the UVs, and then this goes into alpha. And now if we hit apply without any adjustment, you can kind of see we are now masking the gold and the blue, but there's a lot of gray. So we need to get rid of that gray. So if I double click this texture and then bring it over here, you can see in the green channel, there's a lot of gray going on, so we want to crunch those values down. Now this is where I actually might use a lot more of these options here. I will definitely want the black and white values. So I'm gonna right click, promote to parameter. So the default is 0, new white value, promote to parameter, make the default 1. And then we definitely want one for the middle point, promote that to parameter 0.5, and then we want a boolean, set it to true for the interpolation curve, and then we also want interpolation power, and then we can leave that on 1 and then hit apply. Now one thing before we start playing with these values is it might get a little confusing here, like it's all not grouped nicely. So for this, you can do a lot better job, but what I'm just going to do simply is select all my nodes that are parameters. So I'm just selecting, hold shift, drag, shift, and drag. And I'm going to make this a group, and I'll just call it 00 underscore mask settings. I'll just call it mask. I don't even need to do settings. I'll just call it mask. Make this guy parameter in case we want to change him. So alpha mask, put him into the mask. And I think that's about it. Hit apply and save. And now we have this little drop down menu with all of our mask settings. All right, so first thing we'll do is let's just check on all these parameters that we made. And let's just have a play with the interpolation power first. So 2, 3, 4, 7, 8. You can see as I increase the contrast, we're slowly crunching down the blacks and whites. So we're getting a lot less gray, which is definitely very cool. But we kind of want more flex and a lot more space between the flecks. So to do that, let me just leave it at, let's just leave it at 2 or 3 for now. And let's play with these black and white values. So if I just increase the black values a bit, you can see that's introducing more grays. So if I just go into the negative, I'm now clipping away those darker values. And then if I decrease the white just to get some of the gold back, I can sort of like start bringing down these values a lot more. Another thing we can do, if I just reset these to default, let's change the middle point, because that'll give us, we can first bias it towards one value and then crunch it from there like that. So now you can see we have a lot more specs and it looks a lot nicer. And then now we can kind of play with our white values a little more. Let's leave it at 1 so it stays fully gold. And then we can just sort of maybe crunch our middle point a bit, or we can leave it at like a 0.65, and then play with our interpolation power. One thing you'll notice though when I'm crunching these values is you'll see, like, because we're going into negatives, it's like doing weird things with the texture, and like we're using too large of a value and going beyond where the curves are being interpolated. And a lot of that doesn't make sense, but what we want to do is clamp the values. So to do that, we can just drag out of our alpha mask. So go back to your parent material, drag out of our mask, and then type saturate. And if we hover over it, this clamps the values between 0 and 1. So we won't have these weird things happening to the material where the roughness starts going away and things like that. And we can just play with the brightness levels essentially. So drag the saturate into the alpha and then hit apply and then save. And now when we crunch these values, we are just taking away from the darkness, but we're clipping it at 0. We're not going into the negatives of the black values or the whites. So now you can kind of see, if we just again leave the white at 1, we have our nice metal, and then we can sort of play with the middle point to get a lot of control over the flex that we see. So super useful, really cool. I'm gonna actually reduce the tiling to like a 0.5 maybe, and then play with the middle point a lot. And now you can see we have this nice material with like all these metal specks around, but we still have our plastic base applied to that. And what you can do is actually use this mask for the displacement as well. So if you have displacement enabled in your project, check out my tutorial on how to do that. Very simple. And then make sure that your object is also nanite. So I don't think mine is right now. So if I just go to my sphere, right click nanite enable, give it a sec to prepare. I'm just also going to save. And you can see once nanite's enabled, like the colors get all washed out. I don't know why nanite objects like change the gamma of the albedo. I've noticed a lot of that mainly in 5.4. So I'm just going to open up this material and adjust the blues. I genuinely don't know why it does that, but I'll just make it more towards what we had before. And you'll notice it's got these weird shading errors. If you want to fix that, you can adjust the normal bias. And the reason it's got this is because my light that's shining is ray tracing. So if I just type in ray and disable, you can disable ray tracing, or you can go to ray tracing normal bias, and I'll change it to like a 0.5 or a 0.7. Wow, you got to change it quite a bit. So you don't want to crank that too much, to be honest, because it does lower the accuracy of the normals and stuff. So be careful. You can see it's still happening a bit, but I'll just show you how this works with displacement. So let me open up the material again. So once you now have this enabled, you can drag out of your saturate into the displacement. Nothing will happen yet because just select your canvas, so nothing's selected, and then type in tessellation, and then you just got to also enable this. So now your tessellation should be enabled. Sorry, tough word to say. Hit apply, and you'll see the tessellation is way too strong, like the displacement. So we're going to go to our material instance, type in displacement, and I'm just going to enable lower this to like a 0.1. And now you can see it's being displaced ever so slightly, and just adds a little more depth to the scene. Even like, especially here on the edge, you can see along the edges of the sphere, the little gold nuggets are popping up. It might even be a little too strong. Like maybe a 0.05 would look a little better. Yeah, now you can see that's sort of protruding out, and I probably would want to blur the displacement map a little bit. So if any of you know a good way to blur the edges of the white values, let me know. But you can see now there's a lot more depth to the material. I don't think this needs the displacement. I'm just showing you if you wanted to do that, you could. And yeah, that's the tutorial. Hopefully this was useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.